Hey guys, Minishcap1 here. Gonna do a patch note review for patch 8.12. Some things I expect to see in this patch are Camille nerfs, Irelia nerfs, or things that I want to see in this patch are Camille nerfs, Irelia nerfs, potential Singed nerfs. I'll talk about my take on how Singed should be nerfed, if he's nerfed at all, in a separate video. Expect that soon. I probably want to see some Essence Reaver changes in this patch notes, because Essence Reaver has been very strong, I think, over the course of the last patch. So let's get right into it. Champions, Elise, they're giving her additional movement speed from 325 to 330 on her human form, and additional movement speed from 350 to 355 on her spider form, and they're increasing volatile spiderling base damage. It's actually getting an additional 25 base damage at level 5. So this ability, I'm pretty sure it was maxed first, but now you'll get a much more of a reward for maxing it first in the jungle. Faster clear, better gank, higher damage output. Better ganks, definitely better ganks, better clear too. These three changes for Elise scream to me that they want more clear speed, or sorry, faster clear speed, and better ganks, because movement speed is probably the best tool outside of targeted CC for being able to pull off a gank effectively. They want, I think, more magic damage based junglers to thrive. The last few patches, with the exception, the huge exception of Taliyah jungle, which is brand new and pretty cool in my opinion, the jungle meta has been dominated by AD skirmishing type junglers. We see a lot of Greys, a lot of Xin Zhao, a lot of Lee Sin, Nocturne, champions like that. And I think they want to kind of swing it a little bit more towards the middle. And Elise has kind of always been, since she was released, that classic magic damage AP burst ganking jungler, and I think they kind of want to bring some of that back. So excited to see this. They're playing a little bit careful, because whenever Elise is strong, that champion gets really strong. Elise, in a meta where Elise is dominant, she tends to crowd out every other jungle, because she has good sustain, she has really good ganks, and the thing that Elise is really good at, really good at, is she can duel other junglers really well. She has an invulnerability that is also a gap closer, that is also an escape. She has good, I wouldn't say good CC, but she has ACC that she can use to get free damage on the enemy jungler to start off a fight, if she sees them. So I think that's part of the reason why they're kind of taking a bit of a light-handed approach with this, but I think in the hands of a good Elise player, these are really good buffs. Ezreal, armor decreased, armor 25 to 22, AD growth 3.11 to 2.5. Ezreal, I don't know what they want with him. I don't think that Ezreal has been that much of a problem champion. We can actually even see, if we look at Ezreal stats, he's fourth highest win rate jungle with, or sorry, fourth highest win rate AD carry with 51.16% win rate. I don't personally feel like 51.16% win rate is all that high, but if you take into account his pick rate, almost 50% pick rate, it's 46.67. That is a really high pick rate. And for him to have a positive win rate with that high of a pick rate, maybe there's an issue, but I don't feel like Ezreal is really that oppressive to where he needs, honestly, a pretty heavy-handed nerf, because this is going to hurt his laning a lot. Just getting hit by a basic attack, -3 armor at level 1 is a lot more punishing. So we'll see how the Ezreal changes pan out. But I personally didn't feel like he was that much of a problem champion. I really like the double tier build. I think double tier Ezreal is one of the best things to happen to bot lane in terms of innovation, in terms of fun. It's really fun to play double tier Ezreal. So I'm kind of sad to see that Riot is trying to nerf him back down a bit. But he is a pretty ubiquitous pick. He's in basically every single game if he's not banned. So we'll see how this goes. Kindred, attack speed growth increased, Q attack speed increased, E damage increased, base stats, attack speed growth from 2.5% to 3.5%, Q dance of arrows, so after you cast it, she gets attack speed after casting Q. It's going from 10% to 25%. This This is a huge buff. Kindred's dueling, her clear, her ganks, her team fighting, everything about Kindred is buffed with this Q buff, because her entire kit revolves around pushing Q and then auto attacking and weaving auto attacks in between abilities. And with a higher attack speed, you can get more auto attacks off in between your cooldowns, which is really, really good for Kindred. E mounting Dread. This change, I think, doesn't matter nearly as much as this change. In addition to this change, what else they're changing about her attack speed is her base attack speed. So this 3.5% is going to increase with her level. Every time she levels up, she gains 3.5% attack speed, and then with Q, Dance of Arrows, buffing that on top of that, that's a lot of attack speed buff for Kindred. These are honestly really big nerfs, or sorry, really big buffs for Kindred, and I'm expecting to see a lot of Kindred in the jungle next patch, because she was already semi-viable. I wouldn't say she was viable, because she wasn't picked quite often enough to make her a viable pick, but I think with these changes, she'll be a viable, if not contested pick. Alright, Lee Sin, W cooldown increased, decreased, E damage increased. There's been a lot of repeat buffs to Lee Sin, and I'm kind of worried about that, because Lee Sin is one of those champions, like I mentioned with Elise, where once he's strong, or gets into a state where he's strong or near the top of the jungle tier list, he just dominates every other jungler for the same reason I mentioned about Elise. He has really good ganks, he has really good dueling, he has good in-jungle sustain, huge mobility, lots of versatility in this champion. This is honestly a really, really big buff. 10 damage at level 1 is nothing to laugh at. 15, 20, 25, 30 damage at level 5. If Lee Sin wasn't maxing E second before, he definitely is now. I think maybe even maxing E first before Q, because this is a really large damage buff to E. But I'm assuming Q max will probably still be how Lee Sin is played for the most part. 2 seconds off of Safeguard Iron Will means he gets more healing because the cooldown's lower, he gets more shielding because the cooldown's lower. So over the course of time, this is going to make Lee Sin have a much healthier clear, healthier ganks, healthier dueling. He's just going to have the higher level of health, of a higher health pool available throughout the game to just make him stronger throughout the course of the game. Because one of the ways that junglers tend to be balanced is the amount of health that they can float on during a clear, which they need to think about when they go into a gank. Because if you go into a gank as a jungler with half HP, the laner might just turn on you and try and kill you. But with changes to survivability and shielding and sustain, if you have a higher effective health pool going into a gank, then there's less of a chance for that gank to be turned around against you, and you have more health for a potential tower dive or whatever else it is that you need to do. So a little bit scared of the repeated Lee Sin buffs from patch to patch to patch. Honestly, he's going to be a meta jungler this patch. I can see that happening. These two changes are just helping him a lot, because Tempest is also an AoE ability, so this also helps his clear by quite a bit for Lee Sin. Poppy, passive cooldown decreased late, Q cooldown decreased, ratio increased. So tanks are not particularly good in the meta right now. I don't think that, even though these changes are good and these are changes that Poppy needs, I don't think that this is going to make her into a contested pick. 0.1 bonus AD for the cast and the detonation, so there's a total of a 0.2 bonus AD ratio buff. So she gets 0.1 extra on whenever she slams her hammer down, and 0.1 extra whenever it actually pops off. So that in itself is a decent buff. They could probably have gone like a 0.15. I think it would have been okay, because these changes, the -1 second cooldown at all levels for Q, even though that's what you max first, even though you're buying a CDR, that's like, I feel like it's not enough, because of one, how weak tanks are right now, and two, just how binary Poppy is. There's a lot of champions in top lane who are ranged, who can easily deal with Poppy and harass her, bully her around, shove her in. She has naturally pretty weak wave clear. This Q change will help her wave clear, by a decent amount, but you would have to it's bonus AD, not base AD, so she would have to buy some long swords or something like a Doran's. Well, Poppy doesn't go Doran's blades, so if she's going for a Tiamat first or a Triforce, because I've seen some Poppies do that, even Titanic, like this would be a good change, but a lot of Poppies just like to build pure tank, and if you're one of those Poppies that builds pure tank, you will like the -1 second off Q, but you're not going to get extra damage out of it because it's bonus AD, not base AD, that the damage ratio is actually being increased by. So overall, I don't think that this will change Poppy's state in the meta, but if you're a Poppy main, like it's better than nothing, I guess. I just don't get really excited about Poppy. Poppy's not a champion that I look at and I go, whoa, Poppy. I love Poppy. Like she's kind of boring to me. I'm sure some people have a lot of fun with her, and if you're one of those people, then have fun with this. I wish you guys were getting more from Riot on this patch, because this is really it's just so little, but we'll have to see how it goes for Poppy. Rumble, W shield increased, R damage increased. As a Singed player, this makes me really nervous, because Rumble is a champion that naturally does really well versus Singed. He can kite Singed, he can harass him through the creep wave. He can burst Singe and all in if he goes orange and then red. His R ultimate is amazing for team fights. Really good. So what are they specifically changing? W scrap shield, base shield is gaining 20. This is generally the ability that's max last on Rumble. So gaining 20 base shield at level 1 is huge. Looks like it's 20 at all ranks, but going from 80 shield to 100 shield at level 1 is a lot. And then also on top of that, they're increasing the AP ratio on the shield from 0.4 to 0.5. So not only is the base going up, but the ratio is going up too, which means that Rumble will afford to build a little bit more AP early and a little bit less health. So maybe instead of, if you're sitting on 450 gold as Rumble in a certain matchup, maybe before you would buy a Ruby Crystal, now you can maybe buy an Amp Tome and then rely on the extra health from your shield to trade effectively without having that Ruby Crystal, therefore having more damage in the laning phase, therefore having more presence in the laning phase, potentially winning your laning phase. So this is a pretty big change for Rumble, pretty big buff. R, the Equalizer, gaining 50 damage at level 1. Looks like, wow, 125 at level 2. 200 damage at level 3 increase. And 0.25 AP ratio also. I'm aware that this is a dot, so like for having a 200 damage increase over 5 seconds, that's really not that much. But if you consider that this ultimate also has a slow on top of it, if you pair this ultimate with someone who has crowd control, that is a really big buff, especially the AP ratio increase. 0.25 AP ratio increase on what is essentially a dot ability is massive. Whenever you increase the AP ratio on a dot ability, you have to consider that this 0.25 extra AP matters on every single tick of the ability. So if I'm not sure how often Rumble's ultimate ticks, but let's say hypothetically that it ticks once per second. That's 0.25 extra ratio every second. So 0.25 times 5, 125. That's basically a 1.25 AP ratio increase right there, if you theoretically get the entire duration off of the ability, which is why you have to be very careful when you increase the ratio of dot abilities like this, because every single tick of the ability applies the extra damage from the ratio. I thought that W was a pretty heavy buff to Rumble, but now that I'm reading R the Equalizer, this is a really big buff to Rumble. Like this together, I expect to see Rumble top lane as a meta pick. I think these changes will make him a meta top laner almost for sure, especially in a meta where we're versus champions like Bruisers. Bruisers just dominate top lane right now. Rumble does not do so well versus tanks because he can't kill tanks, he can't get a lead on tanks because tanks can just buy a Dorn Shield and a Spectre's Cowl and pretty much ignore him. for Rumble to be able to play against champions like Jax, like Irelia, Camille, characters like that, where he can actually duel them, where their ability to face tank his abilities is much weaker. This is really good for Rumble. Sejuani, Icebreaker, deals less damage versus monsters, but no longer has a cooldown against them. More units can be frozen, W cost less, now has AP ratios, E damage, and ratio increase. Sejuani has been nerfed into the ground, essentially, whenever they did a pretty heavy-handed nerf to her back near the beginning of the season, and then since then, she has been really struggling. So, what Riot is trying to do with this is give her more of a reward for building AP and having less of a requirement to go full tank, because she's going to have more units frozen, more CC overall to be able to fight with, which means if you have more units that are CC'd, you're taking less damage, there's less of a need to build health. So passive, Fury of the North, Icebreaker, damage versus monsters going from 400 flat to 10 to 20% of the target's max health. 300 against epic monsters, damage matching versus other targets, and then they're changing from the targets from enemy champions epic large monsters to enemy champions epic large medium monsters, super minions, and siege minions. So her passive will be able to affect way more types of enemies now, gives her more clear speed, because it says epic large and medium monsters, so this will be able to affect small camps too, like whenever you break up the Krugs or the mini raptors, the wolves, the mini wolves, you'll have the ability to proc your passive on that and just do extra damage and clear faster. W, Winter's Wrath, this is a pretty big buff. Wow, they're giving it an entire AP ratio, and they're not even going to mess with the base on this ability, going from 80 mana to 65 mana cost. And they're giving it 0.2 AP ratio on the first swing and 0.6 on the second swing for a total increase of 0.8 AP. This is really big. They want Sejuani to build Runic, and because of that, I'm not gonna say that we'll see Sejuani just because Elise got some pretty heavy buffs also, but I think that for Sejuani one-trick players, that this will give you a way to play your champion and not have it be trash, really, which is really good, because that's kind of the goal, right? You don't want any one champion to just be completely unplayable. You want everything to be playable. Naturally, some things will be way stronger than others, but as long as something is playable, I think that's a good baseline for balance. E, Permafrost. Freezable targets, going from enemy champions and epic large monsters to enemy champions, epic large medium monsters, super minions, and siege minions. So, they removed the unit, the per unit cooldown against non-champions, and they're giving it some extra base damage, and they're giving it some extra AP ratio. This is this is also a really big buff to Sejuani. Maybe she will be after I read this E Permafrost change, maybe she will be a decent pick in the jungle next patch. Sorry, for patch 8.12, but I still feel like she'd have a hard time functioning without building Cinderhulk. But then if she builds Cinderhulk, then she can't take advantage of these massive buffs on W and E. The passive buff is whatever, but W and E have really big buffs here. So she might be more of a caster type jungler. We used to see a lot of full AP Sejuani mid. We might see some full AP Sejuani jungle, or even like AP Bruiser Sejuani jungle, which would be really cool. I think the game needs more AP Bruisers. AD Bruisers are like the Bruisers in League of Legends, when in reality there are plenty of AP Bruisers that exist. Rumble, AP Bruiser, Zac, AP Bruiser, Sejuani, I guess now AP Bruiser, Singed, AP Bruiser, Vladimir, AP Bruiser, Swain, AP Bruiser, but there's like 15 AD Bruisers, so it's really cool to see this. I don't think that this will make her a meta champ, but for one tricks of Sejuani, this will be really cool for them. Taliyah Q rocks beyond the first, deal slightly less damage to champions. So they hotfix buffed Taliyah last patch, and the change that they did was that they reduced the cooldown for threaded volley whenever you're standing on worked ground, and when you're standing on worked ground and you only throw the one rock, I think it only costs 1 mana now. So that has given her really fast clear. It's given her a lot of heavy damage in team fights, really good gank damage. So they kind of want to reduce the impact that she's having without dumpstering the champion, which I think is cool. So whenever you're not standing on worked ground and you cast Threaded Volley, you go from 100% damage on the first rock down to 60% on the second, third, fourth rocks. They're changing that from 100% to 60% to 100% to 50% on the second, third, and fourth rocks. Minus 10% damage, assuming you hit all 3 of the additional rocks. Minus 10% damage on each is like a 30% damage reduction overall, because you're minus 10%, minus 10%, minus 10%, right? So that's a pretty fat nerf to Q. Threaded Volley, and then they already nerfed her her base AD. They already changed the Q damage versus champions, and they already changed the Unraveled Earth dash damage from 75. Okay, so the E was actually buffed mid patch. I did not know that. Unraveled Earth was buffed mid patch, so I'm assuming that this Q will probably be max first, followed by E with the W max last. I'm not exactly sure how the level order for Taliyah jungle works, but the idea is that the changes that they did to her last patch pushed her towards a jungle role, because she had a lot of movement speed on the passive, really fast jungle clear. So Korean players started picking her up in the jungle as a viable AP jungler, because we've been struggling to see a viable AP jungler for a while, with a few exceptions. And then I think they just want to tone her down a little bit. I'm actually not sure what the statistics are on Taliyah specifically. She's mostly played. Wow, she actually has a pretty high win rate and a pretty decent pick rate too. So I knew that Taliyah was strong. I didn't know that she was that strong. So I can understand why they want to dial her damage back a bit, but hopefully they don't completely get rid of the champion from the meta, because I really like seeing Taliyah jungle. I think the innovative stuff like that is really cool. Yorick Q cooldown decreased late. Mistwalkers and the Maiden now update their stats when Yorick's stats change. With no bonus AD ratios in his kit, the Sterak shift from granting base AD to bonus AD weakens Yorick's Trinity Force damage without increasing the impact of his abilities. Other Sterak's Trinity Force champions in the bonus ratio less position are either pretty far ahead of Yorick power-wise, or have other builds to lean on. Since this build has historically been Yorick's only good offensive choice, we're giving him some buffs to offset a nerf that he has no way of sidestepping. So Q, last rites, going from 5 seconds to 4 seconds, level 5, 5.5 to 4.75, level 4, etc, etc, etc. Since this is an ability that's being maxed first, and Sterak's going from base AD to bonus AD for damage, they're giving him a little bit of change for his late game. Q, I don't think this is going to make Yorick viable at all. I think the champion is just not designed well enough in a way that he's able to be balanced without making him broken. Because a champion like Yorick, he's designed to be a dueling split pusher with unit control that can potentially tank turrets, harass, push for him. The Maiden can push a side lane while he teleports to a different lane, and he can push 2 lanes at once. And so with a champion that is able to do things like that, I think the problem is that they gave him a lot of cool, crazy stuff, but with that, they've tried to keep him weak so he doesn't get out of hand. Like, I love the concept of Mistwalkers being able to push a wave for you. I love the concept of the Maiden being able to push a wave and dueling with Mistwalkers and Maiden on your side, and having both of them up, having 3 Mistwalkers and a Maiden just beating down an enemy champion. I think that's a really cool concept, but the thing about a champion like that in a game like League, where unit control is so rare, like there's barely any champions who can do unit control. When I say unit control, I mean things like controlling anti-tibbers. That when you give them really powerful units like this, I think the champion itself, and Riot probably recognize this, has to be kept a little weaker to compensate for the amount of viability and strength that a type of build, a type of playstyle like that innately has in a game like League. And I think that's part of the reason why Riot will probably never let Yorick be meta just because I feel like it would be so oppressive to be even slightly behind against a Yorick if he's in an overpowered state, or even a viable state. I wish that a champion like Yorick could be made viable without making him broken. I really, really do. And I feel for Yorick players, because this change is not going to help you that much. He's a pretty weak champion as far as I'm aware. We can check Yorick stats, but I feel like a really big buff to his kit would just make him crazy. Yeah, he's 29th win rate, 49.79%. So I wish that Yorick was able to be fixed in a way that would make him playable, but I just can't see it happening with how Riot has kind of designed his rework. I hope that makes sense. Jhin, bug fixing. Jin's 4th passive Whisper Shot now overrides Stormrazor's guaranteed crit damage modifier. So with Stormrazor, if you don't auto attack for a while, your next auto attack is guaranteed to crit, starting at a base of 160 crit that goes up to 200% crit. 200% being a normal crit, 160% being a mini crit. So I think with Jin's 4th shot, it's meant to do damage based off of, it's 1, guaranteed crit, 2, does damage based off of missing health, and maybe, I think the interaction with Stormrazor was being really weird, but hopefully with this, it should work out together a bit better. Mid patch 8.11 updates, Kai'Sa nerfs. Kai'Sa is still completely broken. This champion, in my opinion, is kind of like Yorick, like what I was talking about here. She just has so many tools in her arsenal. She has a massive self-shield, huge gap closer. She can go invisible movement speed buff, big nukes, big burst damage, big sustain damage, percent max health damage, ability to do magic damage, physical damage, and just scale like a monster, have a strong laning phase. Like, she has so many things in her kit that I think, unless a champion like this is in an absolute garbage state, they will be really overbearingly strong. Even after these nerfs to Kai'Sa, she is still really strong. And honestly, I thought that they would re-nerf her again in this patch, and they're not. So Kai'Sa will probably remain on my ban list for solo queue. Pyke, yeah, he got slight hotfix buffs in the mid patch, so he went from 5 health regen to 7, 380 to 415 base mana, 42 to 45 armor, base AD 60 to 62. I think Pyke is really cool. I would not go so far as to call him OP. Really fun, really balanced, interesting support / assassin hybrid champion. I want to look at his stats actually and see what specifically. Oh wow, I had no idea that his win rate was that low. I thought that Pyke was actually quite strong of a champion. They might actually rebuff patch then, or rebuff Pyke then. But he would. I feel like he would give his teammates so much gold if he was stronger than he is. But I feel also that like 46.42% win rate might be a little bit low for any champion. So maybe we'll see some changes for Pyke coming up. Maybe. Yasuo lost some damage with the change to IE, so they gave him increased AD by 3, and they increased his Q crit from 150% to 180%, so a little bit less than a normal crit, but much higher than what he had previously. Cool, Yasuo is pretty much in, overall, I think, a similar spot to where he was before. Let's actually, I'm just really curious about the stats on the champions that they're changing. Yasuo, wow. 47.79% win rate in top lane. What's the mid lane? 48.13. AD carry. Okay, so this one's pretty cool. In the bot lane, Yasuo actually has a 50.31% win rate, which I did not expect, but there have been a lot of people playing melee champions in bot lane because AD carries got a lot of their base stats in their early game hit quite hard last patch. So this is pretty cool. As far as these changes go, it is something that Yasuo probably needed because of the changes to Infinity Edge, which was one of his core items. Allied, shield, and ability items. So, I think... Excuse me. Overall, what they want to do with this is reduce the shield duration that shielding supports have, because with enough CDR, a shielding support like Janna or Lulu can just almost permanently shield their intended shield target. So say you're Jhin with a 45% CDR and you cast E on your AD carry for them to have a shield. Well, with enough now that you have the CDR, with enough mana regen, you can just permanently keep doing that, even though the shield cost is quite high. There's a very, very low amount of time in which the AD carry will not be shielded versus which they will be shielded next. If you're just using it on them on cooldown, which gives the AD carry a lot of safety. I think that's what they're trying to change with this. So they're reducing a lot of shield duration. They are also, I think, trying to reduce the overall stat efficiency of shield/heal power that they added to the game a few years ago, or a few seasons ago. So let's see. Janna, shield decays after a brief delay, so now that she casts a shield, it actually starts to reduce the amount of health that it provides over after 0.75 seconds. So it's not just sitting at full health on your AD carry while you're casting it on them. You'll put it on your AD carry, and 0.75 seconds later, it's going to start dropping off in terms of the health that it gives until you cast it on them again, and that's going to repeat. Karma, shield duration decreased from 4 seconds to 2.5 seconds, also applies to her Mantra E. Similar thing to what they were talking about up here, just reducing shield duration, giving some more counterplay windows to overall the shields. Lulu, shield duration decreased from wow, it was 6 seconds. I had no idea it was that long. From 6 seconds to 2.5 seconds. This is one of those abilities that I was talking about. I knew that Lulu could almost perma shield a champion, but I didn't know that the duration was that high. That is a really high duration. I'm glad that they're changing this. Orianna, E command protect, shield duration from 4 seconds to 2.5 seconds. I don't agree with this one. No one ever thinks of Orianna mid and goes, oh wow, her shield is so strong, I wish they would nerf her shield. The shield is not any part of what makes Orianna a good champion. Like, the shield is good, sure, it's nice to have, but I think just because she can cast it on an ally doesn't mean that she needs a shield duration nerf, because Orianna doesn't buy any of these items. I think she actually does buy Athene's, but I don't think she buys Forbidden Idol just for the heal shield power. She doesn't buy Ardent Censer, doesn't buy Mikhail's Crucible, doesn't buy Redemption. She does buy Athene's, so I can kind of understand nerfing Forbidden Idol, but these three, she doesn't buy Ardent Censer, doesn't buy Mikhail's Crucible, doesn't buy Redemption. She can't stack these and gain huge amounts of heal shield power, and she's a mid laner. She's a control mage. She's not a support. So I'm kind of weirded out by this shield duration change, but I guess only time will tell. I want to see what her actual win/play rate is. So 48.37% win rate. I guess maybe Riot thought that Orianna's shield is a problem. I personally didn't think that her shield was quite that strong. But I guess they're just wanting to pre-nerf it in case it becomes a problem. I don't know. This is a really weird change to me. Forbidden Idol, CDR, heal shield power reduced 10% to 5%, heal and shield 8% to 5%, Ardent Censer 10% to 8%, Mikhail's 20% to 15%, Redemption 8% to 10% to 8%. All of these are pretty mild nerfs, except Mikhail's. Mikhail's is taking a huge hit here because Mikhail's is that, like, I'm gonna save my teammate who's getting CC'd, attacked, burst type of item. So this is, like, I guess the most supporty of the supporty items, and they're gonna nerf this one the hardest. Maybe this item had a higher win rate than the other items, but overall, since all of these items are usually built on supports who tend to stack these are going to take a pretty big hit by losing, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. I don't think that this will make healing and shielding supports unviable, but it's definitely going to weaken them a bit, and also going to, I think, push AD carries a little bit farther out of the meta than they already have been. Athene's Unholy Grail. Damage to blood ratio, 25% pre-mitigation damage to 35% pre-mitigation damage. This is not the biggest buff to Athene's Unholy Grail. It's just, the item itself is like a support mage hybrid item for champions who can cast shields. So like a champion like Orianna, once you cast your shield on yourself, you gain that pre-mitigation damage. from 25 going and doing that from 25% to 35% is really not that high for Athene's Unholy Grail. Items, Banner of Command, absolutely removed. They're saying, Riot saying that whenever Banner of Command is good, it's way too good, and when it's not good, it's never bought. So personally, I bought Banner of Command whenever it wasn't OP, and then now that it is OP, they're saying that it's either completely meta defining or never bought at all. So they're just gonna completely remove Banner from the game, and they're gonna see whether or not they want to add it back into the game later. I don't agree with this change. I think Banner is cool. I'm sad that they're just completely taking it out of the game and kind of giving up on balancing it appropriately. But that's the strategy that they're going for, so we'll have to see how it plays out. It's going to give certain top laners like Singed less options to deal with ranged AP champions like Timo, Lissandra, Vladimir, Swain, etc, 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 Lulu, Kennen, stuff like that. But we'll have to see how it plays out. We'll probably have to rush a different item versus those champions now, because that was the main situation in which I was buying Banner, was to counter champions like that. A lot of people were just rushing Banner to rush Banner because it was Banner. So with this item being completely removed, we'll have to find something else to rush versus those champions. Sterak's Gage, I have seen a lot of Bruiser players absolutely crying about Sterak's Gage, and what they did was they changed the 50% base AD to bonus AD, which means that you can't use the Triforce passive to gain extra damage out of Sterak's Gage, because it's not based off base damage anymore, it has to be based off of bonus AD. Now, Bruisers who buy bonus AD will like this change because it's going to help them more, but the Bruisers who don't buy bonus AD, who just go Triforce and then tanky stats, will not like this change. Honestly, for those champions, you can probably still buy this item because it gives AD and health and shield, which are all really good for Triforce users. Just because it's not going to give bonus base AD anymore for your Triforce doesn't mean that it's a bad item. It's still in concept a really good item for you, just because the in-fight shield is so strong. It stops you from getting bursted. Malmortius, Maw shield not properly lasts the full 5 seconds again. Don't care about that. Alright, runes. Precision, presence of mind, bug fix, don't care. Sorcery, celerity. Oh, okay. I was waiting for this one. This is a really bad change for Singed, I think. They're changing the movement speed from 3% to 1.5%. And they're changing the the damage conversion from 4.8% AD to 9.6% AD, and from 8% AP to 16% AP, based on how fast you're moving. So whenever you go faster with Celerity, now you will gain more movement speed based on, or you will gain more AP or more AD based on how fast you're going. This is going to be really good for champions who would rather have the AD than the movement speed, like Warwick. But for champions like Singed, I think, who would rather have the movement speed than the AP, this is really bad. Generally on Singed, historically, you want to stack a little bit more movement speed than AP, because if you can't get to your opponent in the first place, how are you supposed to do anything to them? So that's why, like you still want both. You still want movement speed, you still want AP, but with this change, it's going in the opposite direction. You're going to gain more AP and less movement speed, whereas with Singed, you still want both, but you want a little bit more movement speed. So I'm kind of mixed on this. I want to say overall it's a nerf to the rune as far as Singed is concerned. Some champions will definitely like this. I don't think Singed is one of them. Domination, Hail of Blades, bonus attack speed from 50 to 100 to 75 to 125%. They just want more champions to take this. So they're buffing it. I wonder if this is going to make champions like Kog'Maw or Vayne really strong. Because I've just been imagining Vayne with Hail of Blades getting off essentially an instant 125% attack speed W triple auto attack Silverbolt's proc. And I'm surprised that I haven't seen more of it. Especially with the Bruiser bot lanes, I feel like Vayne would be really good versus that with her ability to kite and stun and hyperscale. So maybe this will make us see more Vayne play. Not sure. Last hit assistance, don't care. New player experience, don't care. Emote updates, don't really care about this at all. Except that Rammus one, that one's really cute, and the Penguin one, that one's really cute too. Basically, I guess one of the problems that I have with how Riot tends to patch their games over the course of a season is in the beginning of the season you will get really cool, like, big sweeping changes to the game. I like a good example being Runes Reforged. I think Runes Reforged is one of the best things, if not the best things, to happen at League of Legends in a long time. Runes Reforged works way better with way more champions than the old Runes and Mastery system ever did. Runes Reforged gives more choices, more versatility, more uniqueness to your champion play in pregame as opposed to the old Runes and Mastery system, and for that reason I think that Runes Reforged is an amazing change. But the problem is that for changes like that, or even just changes overall, they stop after mid-season rolls around. They mostly just stop because Riot is for the last 2 seasons or so, they've been so concerned with making things stable for Worlds that I think they just kind of neglect their game after mid-season rolls around. Like, this patch is small. It's honestly really small, and I've seen several sources. I can't find the specific comment, but I've seen many writers saying that they don't want to do that many more big changes for the rest of the year. I'm thinking it's June 12th. There's 6 more months left in the year, and you're telling me that you don't want to do that many more big changes? I realize that the season ends in November, so technically there's 5 months left in the season, in the year, but you don't want to do big changes for 5 more months? That's insane to me. And it's been like that for the past 2 or 3 seasons. Season 6, 7, 8. Okay, yes, season 6, season 7, season 8. And that worries me because that means that the game becomes really stagnant. And if things are overpowered, then they stay overpowered forever. And if things are weak, then they stay weak forever. And that's worrisome because you need to address things like that. And with a really light patch cycle for half of the season, that's not good. And I think the reason that they want to try and dial back on that stuff is because in season 5 they had a pretty big patch 5.17, basically right before Worlds, and the champions that they added in that patch, mostly Gangplank and Darius, just dominated Worlds. But is that really a bad thing? If teams can't adapt, is that a bad thing? If I think that Riot, a lot of the time, they focus way too hard on competitive and not enough on solo queue, on your average player experience. I'm not saying that the game should be based around, high elo in terms of balance, or not even high elo or competitive. Like, yeah, some balance around competitive is fine, but if for half of the season you're ignoring your solo queue, your ranked players, your players that care the most about the game, that play the game the most, I feel like that's a bit of a problem. But that's just me rambling. I hope you guys like this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.